Hi, I'm William Wallace with Inside Cloud, and we're here at OSCON 2013 in Portland, Oregon. We have Solomon Hykes here, CTO of dotCloud. Last time we talked, Solomon, we were at Structure GigOhm a couple years ago, 2011 that is, and you just won an award. Must have been a pretty proud moment of you for the best new technology. I do believe it was. I'm certain that things have changed quite a bit since then. Can you kind of give me the evolution of the technology from then till now?
2011, we launched dotCloud out of beta, and as you mentioned, we won this award at GigOhm Structure. And our defining message was, PaaS doesn't have to be a constraint. You can make developers' lives easier and leave them in control, right? And so, at the time, we launched the first multi-language platform as a service, and that made a lot of noise at the time, and we've been growing and scaling that platform since. And since then, things have changed a lot. I think the most important change is that PaaS, Platform as a Service, has gained acceptance. More companies around the world realize that it's a necessary part of IT software. They were going to need one. And they're also realizing it's not just a thing you can get off the shelf and buy and just stand up and start using. There is probably as many different PaaS as there are enterprise departments out there. So it's something that really needs to be customized and tailored to the needs of each organization. And I think that's the big problem, the big challenge that the entire industry has been trying to solve. How do you standardize something like a deployment of applications in the cloud, knowing that everyone needs a slightly different platform? How do you do that? And so our quest has been to solve that problem, and something very significant happened along the way earlier this year. We decided to open source our core technology because we reached the conclusion that the only way to solve this fundamental problem for everyone was to open up the core technology and make it available in a form that can be reused and customized by anyone, regardless of where you want to run your applications, whether you want to run them on a public cloud, on a private cloud, or both, regardless of what framework or language or libraries or OS that your developers use. And so we ended up open sourcing a project called Docker, which I'll be happy to talk about in detail. But the Docker is basically the core engine that powers dotCloud, and we're making it available for anyone who wants to build their variation of a platform as a service. And so that's the big change. That's the big, it's the big change for us, and it's a big change for the industry in general. What was really surprising is that we expected, we expected that project to be successful, but we had no idea how successful it would be. And so, since we've launched Docker 3 months ago, the traction has been so breathtaking that we've been essentially forced to reorganize the company to support Docker fully. So, and I'm talking about, hundreds of contributions from, I think, 98 people as we're speaking. And so 98 people outside of dotCloud, the company, contributed to the Docker project in 3 months. Right? We have thousands of ongoing issues and bug reports and feature requests. It's not yet labeled as ready for production, but there are organizations already rolling it out and asking for support and asking for extra features. So basically, we woke up one day and we had an open source community. And it's such an active community that the only thing we could do to really support them was organize dotCloud, the company, around this project. So we've gone full open source, and we announced yesterday that I successfully convinced Ben Golub, who's a veteran in the industry and an expert at making open source businesses successful, convinced him to replace me as CEO so that I can focus on making the project successful, and he could focus on building a successful business on top of that. So that's a very exciting development.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Can you get into the more technical aspects as to Here we go. Yes. I'm not used to holding the mic. Yeah, can you get into more of the technical aspects as to what Docker does and who it helps?
Sure. So Docker is what we call a container engine, and it's essentially a portability layer for packaging and running any application in a standalone form, so that the developer can build a container, package his application into a container, and then have strong guarantees that that container will run in exactly the same way across any across any infrastructure. So basically the problem it solves is the compatibility matrix of all the different components in your application stack, the database, the application server, the front end, the back end, etc., multiplied by all the different places where that application needs to run, or your laptop, the QA server, the public cloud where you're going to production, the OpenStack deployment that your customers need, all these different places that your app needs to run, multiplied by all the different components that make your app, right? And so the problem is, how do you guarantee that every intersection of that matrix works exactly the same way? It's tested, that all the dependencies are the same, the right version of every library, etc. It's a very complicated problem. It's very hard, and so we offer a solution to that problem by telling the developer, just package your components as standard containers using Docker, and then we turn around and tell the ops guys managing the infrastructure, just take containers as input and build your automation and your orchestration around these containers. So we in a way, we make that compatibility matrix go away.
So, you've obviously taken the CEO title away. You're the CEO, now you're CTO. You can really concentrate on the technology itself. Where do you see it going a few years down the road here? I mean, what's going to happen with platform as a service, and certainly with dotCloud?
So the very interesting development that we've seen, I think, over the last few years is that there's an explosion in available platforms as a service offerings. There are generic web development paths. There are very, very specialized paths. There are dozens of them right now. And the dirty little secret of paths is that no single path is the perfect path for every developer. Developers are very fragmented. Different developers have different tastes. They have different requirements. And for each of those groups of developers, there will be one or more path offerings tailored to them. At the same time, what's been going on is that all of these different path offerings have a common set of underlying problems they need to solve. Every path needs to solve scaling, right? Change management, logging, security controls, etc. And I think up to recently, the assumption was, well, that's the job of infrastructure. Infrastructure as a service. There are VMs, there are firewalls. That's the underlying layer. And I think what we're seeing is that point of view has changed, and people are realizing now there's the need for a common layer that is not just VMs and block storage. It's more advanced than that, and it's based on containers. And containers are a very specific technology that is now available on the Linux kernel and most modern OSs, and they make it possible to move applications around in a very portable way. And they're essentially the common denominator to every path. And that's the layer that Docker delivers. In other words, to summarize, there's going to be only more and more PaaS offerings going forward. There will never be one PaaS to rule them all, but there is the need for a common layer to keep all these platforms interoperable. Otherwise, we have an enterprise IT nightmare on our hands, right? You don't want, the same way you didn't want 10 competing application servers, you don't want 10 different competing PaaSes. It makes no sense for IT.